Hey guys, welcome back, and today we are here with B-Way Grocers, and we have some interesting developments, so let's get into it. & Juliet went from 99.52 to 99.32, going from 1,401,919 to 1,181,687. This was a steep drop. However, any show would still kill to be making this kind of money, and with 4th of July, most musicals tend to have a big drop-off because people like to be outside. A Beautiful Noise went from 69.23 to 66.56, and 888,144 to 734,307. And again, I don't know, I have a feeling that this could close in January, but I want to see where this goes. Because again, this was a week that everything goes down, so we're not sure yet. Back to the Future, in its first week with only 4 performances, made $1 million and 97% capacity, which is an incredible start for a show that nobody wanted, and I've listened to, and it sounds so terrible. I'm sorry, but it has to be said. Camelot went from 79% to 74% and is closing early, going from 735,483 to 502,139, and that's because the average ticket went down considerably, and again, this revival was pretty much a flop. And to go back to the Future for a minute, I think that it's selling incredibly well, and I think we have another School of Rock waitress on her hands. Unfortunately, it is on a musical that is very generic and bland. Funny Girl went from 88.58 to 86.65, going from 1,524,878 to 1,373,605. Hadestown had its worst week yet, going from 99.74 to 99.48, and 733,000 to this week's 672,000, and that's really poor for Hadestown. Again, I don't know if this is going to close soon or not, but what I do know is Hadestown is not doing well at all, and once you hit in the 6s, you're in big trouble. And again, I know it's Labor Day, so it might go back into the 7s, but I fear that once we get into the fall, Hadestown is going to, pun intended, fall into closing. And that is, again, because, you know, it's operating costs and what it, you know, takes to run. If your musical is making $600 or $700, it's a concerning thing. Hamilton went from 1,951,000 to 1,892,442 and 101% capacity. Here Lies Love went from 642,151 to 602,192, going from 83% to 82% with 8 performances. Now again, this is not great for Here Lies Love. It's a very expensive show, and I know they haven't done the marketing yet. They haven't done the talk show appearances, the cast album. It's a new musical, but the problem is that this is a musical that has a $1 million budget, or millions of dollars into it. They had to renovate the theater, so its operating costs must be huge, and doing 602, I'm sorry, it's not great. I mean, I know that investors are probably thinking it's not going to make $1 million, but in an ideal place, they should be making $1 million, and it at least should have an 8 or a 9 in front of it. Lowest, a 7. And the fact that the average ticket is $87 is very concerning for Here Lies Love. And again, I'm not saying it's a flop yet. I don't know yet. I think word of mouth needs to spread. And again, it's time. So if it's still doing these numbers come November and December, that's when we're like, okay, this might close. But for right now, it's just opening. We'll see where it goes, but it's not looking amazing. It could improve. It could go one of 2 ways. It could go a middle ground. I'm thinking more of a middle ground because it's not selling amazing. So I don't know exactly what I would deduce about Here Lies Love performance. Other than that, I would say it's a little bit underwhelming. Unless, of course, this is a marketing strategy with lower ticket prices. But again, I think that with a show like this, you can't necessarily do that. And this is an experience musical. You know, it's very touristy. So I feel like it's the fact that it's the summer and it's not attracting those people is a bit of an issue. But again, its first full week was on July 4th, and that's when musicals tend to go down. So next week needs to have a 7 in front of it. Needs to at least a 7. Should be an 8. But if it stays at 6, it's not good. But it's too early to necessarily say, but I'm just giving you a warning. Akimbo went from 98% to 92%, going from 736,000 to 649,000. And quite decently. Again, it's performing along the lines of a strange loop, so I think it will close in January, or if not January, sometime in 2024. But I could see it running a little bit longer. But again, it's hard to deduce it because all shows go down this week. So it'll be really interesting to see what happens next week, in the next 2 weeks. That will give us more of an idea. But I think that if Kimberly doesn't hit a 9 or a mil or, whatever, or can consistently do 8s and 9s, I think it's going to be a bit of a, okay, you're closing in January situation. Moulin Rouge went from 97% to 98%, going from 1,225,446 to 1,183,746, doing decent. It's a bit soft, but still, it's doing well. New York, I think it's going to close on Labor Day. I think this might be the first one. It went from 78% to 76%, an average ticket of $75, and a gross of $770K compared to last week's $868K, which is not good at all. With a show as big as New York, they cannot afford to do these numbers, and I think it's only going to get worse, or if it stays the same, I would just close it in Labor Day because this show will bleed money. And it started off well enough, but now I think we're starting to see the slow decline of New York. Once Upon a One More Time went from 91% to 59%, so that's great, going from 701,425 to 620K. And again, it's been around for over a month and it still maintains 600. I predict this show will be gone by the end of the year. All shows flop at the Marquee Theater. I don't need to say anything more. Just look at the numbers. It's not improving. Parade went from 98.56 to 99.28. Going from 1,298,261 to 1,141,308, doing great numbers. Shocked went from 94% to 95%, going from 829,381 to 730,592. Again, not terrible, but again, I think it will close in January. If this were to be a Beetlejuice, I think we would have seen it hit higher numbers now. I think it will stay in the 7s and the 8s, maybe a 9, but it's not going to hit 1 million, so I just think it's doing okay. But it's not enough that they're going to want to do this in January and February. I think we'll do well enough that the producers and investors will say, okay, let's go to the fall. And I think in the fall is when we're going to see a lot of money drain. But for right now, it's holding steady. But again, 730 isn't ideal. It should have, that really should be an 8 or a 9. But it's not. 6 went from 996K to 913K. Going from 92.62 to 92.33. Sweeney went from 1,891,780 to 1,794K and staying at full capacity. And finally, Some Like It Hot went from 1 million to 912K, going from 89% to 79%, which is not a huge drop, but again, it isn't amazing. But again, Some Like It Hot is doing 912,000, which is putting it in a much better position than any of the new musicals, and Akimbo included. And I think this will stick around until January. It'll be interesting to see if it stays in the if it goes past 900K. I think personally it will stay in the 900, 800, a million, and then we'll see again the decline in the fall. Again, I think a lot of these shows will decline in September and October, and I think that's when we're going to expect a lot of closing announcements. But I do think New York will be the first one. But all these other shows are maintaining enough where people are hopeful. But again, hope is not going to lead to ultimate, yes, this is going to run for years. So anyways, those are my thoughts on the Ghosters. Like, subscribe, and comment, and I'll see you next week. Peace.